So I'm going to be doing the final condition assessment on this blue DSi XL. Now this one's a little special. Let me take off the battery cover because the serial number on the back shell is worn away. Come on. There you go. This console shares a serial number, the box. So this might be a little hard to sort of side by side with how big the box is. This box is not in the greatest shape. It has a big tear right here, but it also includes the instruction manual, which I think is kind of neat. I really don't have a use for it, so I'm going to be just selling it as part of this console. And since they match serial numbers, you know, why not? So let me grab the information I have. I have some digital information for this console. Should be fine. I did just recently replace the top screen because of some flickering I noticed. Assembled. This is um oh, I see. I made a typo. Okay, that explains that. Okay, so I have a serial number for a motherboard. I'm gonna have to double check. I always feel like LibreOffice always has an update every time I try to open it. US, no known issues. Yep, that's what I currently understand as well. So let me pull off the back shell and confirm the serial number of the motherboard, just to make sure they match my records. Did I put... Okay, these do have screen protectors on them. Okay. Alright, that matches. So as part of the final assessment, I'll be just filling out this paperwork. So I'm going to get the motherboard serial number and the battery life, which I have on a separate sheet of paper here. And I keep all of these motherboard serial numbers. I have a digital record of all of them because I can track if any of them have any issues when I'm first ingesting the consoles. So if one pops in and it spits out an error, or maybe it doesn't turn on, or maybe the charge port's busted, I can write that down in a digital record. So when I look up this motherboard serial number, I'll go, it had X problem, without me having to do a full inspection on the whole thing. Which, since I'm in here, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of do that. Jiggle the little tongue in the charge port, just to make sure that it's solid. It's supposed to be. Everything else looks really good. Just looking in the game card slot, all those pins are good. Looking at one, I'm going to bend this one just a touch. This is not something I necessarily like doing. I just need to get finer dental picks if I really wanted to do that. My dental picks are a little too thick. Alright. So to get my battery life, I did a battery test for 3 hours and 50 minutes. Very respectable. Dust under top screen I got. Screen replaced. Oh, I retested. I don't know why I didn't cross out the old test. So 3 hours and 45 minutes. Essentially the same. I would say a difference of 5 minutes is negligible, but I will have the paperwork with that. Okay. So all I need to do is just go through the normal battery of tests and just see how this console responds. I guess, yeah, I'll finalize this back section and close up the console. So what I like to do is just get a little bit of capped on tape to put over the trying to find tools at the same time. Put a little bit of capped on tape over the plugs for the backlight for the bottom screen, as well as the digitizer. Stock consoles that haven't been opened have little pieces of white tape over them. So that's what Nintendo intended from the factory. Why exactly? It could just be vibrations. Maybe they found in their testing that these connectors can kind of pop loose. And if the digitizer or the backlight come out, that can spell some pretty major problems, especially the backlight. The console won't even turn on without it. Confirm the serial number on the motherboard so I can get this guy back closed up and get it sealed up for testing. Okay, so there's one test I want to do immediately, which is the image retention test, which is still kind of a theoretical test in that I don't exactly have the most practical evidence to suggest that this is a legitimate test, but it's the only thing I've been able to find when probing around two screens that I have that retain images. And basically it's just going to be sitting on the DSI sound menu for a couple minutes. And what I'm looking for is, after a couple minutes, I'm going to switch over to the settings screen to see if this checkerboard pattern or any of these UI elements appear in the settings menu in the background. On image retained consoles that I have, it is clear. Like, it's almost like the settings is overlaid over the DSI sound menu with how bad it is. And that's sort of my only real metric to determine whether or not a screen is going bad. I do have other hints that components of the screen might be going bad, but it's really hard to there's really no way I can like concretely say that yes, this screen is bad. Get these clips on. There we go. So let it be for a little bit, and I'll swap over to the settings menu. It'll give me a chance to sort of set up the other tests, like shuffling over this massive pile of shovelware games. And grabbing a magnet. About 30 or so seconds. Okay. Now I'll quickly swap over to the settings menu. And it is not that bad. So on the bottom screen, you can make it out a little, especially right here on this right-hand side. I currently don't have enough evidence to suggest that that's enough to be worrisome. Like, when I said it was like the settings was overlaid on the setting menu, I meant that pretty literally. I don't have my image retention. I'm going to put together a console with junk parts. That will just be sort of my image retention tester console, and it's shocking how much that image is retained. So I can't exactly show that, you'll just have to take my word for it, but as far as my ability to test and what I understand, these two screens are good for now. Now, I will note that when you do quick like soft reboots, sometimes you can make out some elements, like especially here on the bottom screen, you can somewhat make out the borders of the two main settings for the DSI menu. I don't have enough evidence to suggest that these screens are bad because of that. They could be in the beginning phases of going bad, but you're talking about a console that came out in what, like 2008, 2007, or even whenever this particular set of screens were manufactured, which could have been later, 2010, whenever. And when you're talking about a nearly 20-year-old consoles and the screens are only in the beginning phases of failing, does that mean they have another 20 years? Does that mean they have another 5 years? I don't have enough information to say. But they aren't displaying problems right now. That's really all I can say, and it could be like that for the remaining of their lives. Or, yeah, I can't say one way or another. I'm not going to speak on, like, hypotheticals. Another test I wanted to do, another one that actually recently came up, and kind of wondering My Mario Kart got buried somewhere in this shovelware game mess. I have no particular reason to use Mario Kart. Oh, here it is. So I had a problem crop up recently with a console where it would have an extremely strange behavior in sleep mode. So I'm just going to test that with a little neodymium magnet, just this little tiny feller. Now the console sleep works on the magnets of this speaker in particular, getting close to a component right below the A button. So get the polarity right. If I put the magnet right there, it'll put the console in sleep. And really what I'm looking for is both screens are black, the Wi-Fi light dims, and the power light like breathes, dims, comes back. A console that I had recently, these lights stayed normal, but the screens were like flickering on and off. This console isn't doing it. I've only had one console do that, so I'm going to say that it's fairly rare, but I also haven't been testing for it. So I can't say one way or another. So that passed kind of the two newer tests that I've had to come up with in response to just some faults that have appeared that I really never heard of. So now I can go on to the normal string of tests that I have. Motherboard, power board, tactile, touch, speakers, etc. So I'm just going to start going one at a time and checking them off as I go. Motherboard and power board is kind of a redundant test in that I'm just testing, does the console turn on, does it make it to the menu, does it open up applications and game cards? It does. It opened up DSi sounds, I played Mario Kart DS. If it couldn't do any of those things, it wouldn't be this far along in the testing protocol, since I already put these consoles through an initial round of testing after I assemble them, just to make sure that the components that I did select actually work. Sometimes there's some hidden faults that you wouldn't be able to see like visually, but it's just something I like checking off just as like a yes, it does turn on, it does work. Far to the extent of my knowledge, there is nothing wrong with like the main components of the motherboard or the power board. The power board, of course, and the motherboard, there are of course components on there. I will be testing game card slot, charge port, headphone jack, stuff like that. But as far as like the main like RAM, the storage, I think it's just an APU or whatever it is inside the DSi, all that functions to the extent of my knowledge. Tactile buttons, which is a test of all the buttons. Now, I'll be slotting in an R4 card and running a tester program. That basically just turns on a light every time I press a button. So I'll just be kind of pressing each button a couple dozen or so times. The face buttons, A, B, Y, X, start selector, usually never have problems. D-pad can sometimes have problems depending on what consoles I pull these out of. Usually power boards are a little more resilient because there's no main logic components on them. They're just really basic boards. The main ones, though, are the shoulder buttons. So they're the ones I spend a little more time on, because those are the ones that are more prone to failure. Be it, I don't exactly know why, button design, maybe they're just a little more exposed to the elements. So it's more likely for corrosion to occur in those buttons than it would be the face buttons, which are a lot more isolated. And the shoulder buttons are usually the ones that can hide faults pretty good. A perfectly good looking button won't work because just the internal contacts are just completely corroded away. And both shoulder buttons working every single time. Every time I pressed them, the pace of the light turning on matched my button presses, so that's good. Touchscreen. I will be using another R4 program. I don't want to accidentally touch the touchscreen with my pencil, so I'll put that down. I do kind of notice in my camera, these screens do have a bit of a different color to them. Bottom screen's more blue, top screen's more red. I'll look at that a little more closely here in a little bit. But in this application, all it does is turns the entire bottom screen into a sketchpad. You can do this also in Flipnote Studio. The only reason I don't use Flipnote Studio is because it has a little frog icon in the bottom left, which, well, that makes testing that area a little hard without accidentally touching them. And sometimes there's like tutorial prompts that will pop up that I just don't want to deal with. What I'm going to do is run the perimeter of the touchscreen, just see if it makes a line along the perimeter, which it does. Why I do that specifically is sometimes these touchscreens will house like dead zones. So as I travel along the side of the screen, it'll do like something like that. Usually it's a lot more jagged, but none of the touch will, or nothing will register in this zone. Just everything in that zone is just dead. Even if the other part of the touchscreen's fine, just even if the one zone's dead, whole screen needs to be replaced. I'm also looking for just erroneous inputs. I've had a touchscreen recently where I would do a border and it would fire an input all the way over here to the right, and the rest of it would somewhat function. It would do like a lot of default inputs over here for some reason. So yeah, that whole thing had to be replaced. And as I'm just doing random inputs right here, it's registering all of them, so I have no worries about that touchscreen. It is an OEM touchscreen, and it's still in good shape. Next is speaker, microphone, and headphone jack. I'm going to combo that with an SD card slot test as well. So I'll go into DSI Sounds. Let me take a step back. Oh. I think the combination of trying to open the application, putting in an SD card, and soft resetting was maybe a little too much. I'm going to turn up the volume and watch the indicator on the top left. It's increasing and decreasing as I'm pressing the buttons, as you would expect, just to make sure that the software indicator matches my inputs. And then just for I test the speaker before I put this console together because the speaker is part of the top screen, and if it were to be faulty, I would have to disassemble a large portion of this console to replace it, and I don't want to do that. So I test the microphone and the camera beforehand. La 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 la! La 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 la! So yeah, it captures my voice just fine. Now for the SD card slot, it does see my SD card and it also sees my song, so I'm going to listen to both speakers and then I'm going to plug in my headphones that I have right here and check both channels. Yep, both channels work, both speakers work, and it passes, as well as reading SD card slot. Now, I only test one SD card. I assume that if it reads one SD card, it's fine. It's not like the game card slot, which you're going to be slotting in multiple game cards. You're usually only going to be slotting in like 1 or 2 SD cards. Next is cameras. Turn down the sound so I'm not blasted. Cameras, of course, I test before I put these consoles together, so I know they work. But have to verify, both initialize and display. Next is charge port. This might be a little messy if I accidentally knock that tower over. So I'm going to plug in a USB tester. Close the console. I'm going to put in the charger normally. Ooh. Interesting. Okay, hang on. I may have just blown that fuse. Well, that's a bit unfortunate. Because it blipped up for a second. Huh. Let me try my OEM charger. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, hang on. It's possible my USB tester just... I use my USB tester because I really have no proof that the console is actually drawing power. Oh. Oh, okay, that's an interesting behavior. Let me do my OEM again. I don't think my that charger is going bad already. I haven't had it for that long. So what I'm doing, I'm kind of skipping through a bunch of things right now. So I'll put the charger in normally. I'm looking for a solid orange light. Then what I'll do is rotate the charger in circles to see if that light ever goes out, which it did once, but it's not doing it anymore. So I can't say for certain if that was just a fluke. I'm curious as to why my USB one isn't working, or it's a lot more sensitive than it should be. I have other USB charge cables. I'm gonna go try that before I cry wolf. So here's a just brand new third-party USB-A to whatever Nintendo calls that port end to DSi. I don't know. DSi 3DS. Plug it in like normal. Okay, it's pulling 0.2 amps. And I'm going to do this. And it's not going out. So I don't know what's up with this cable. I may have bent it or something. I don't know. I'm going to have to put that one aside for now and look into it a little later. It's not really relevant to what I'm doing right now. But I have two charging cables confirm that the charge port's fine, pulling to 0.2 amps, which I actually don't know if that's a normal amount. I've seen it kind of fluctuate, but it's charging. And then I take it out. And while the console's on, I'm going to insert it while I have it on the menu. And you can see that the little charging indicator comes on. So that is good. I'm going to put this twisty tie back with this cable. I can get rid of this. So that passes charge port. Now we're on to game card and SD card slot. Oh, and before I get too far, I'm going to grab the version number and take out my R4 card. We are 1.4.1U. Now I already tested the game card slot, or the SD card slot, and that's assumed to be fine because unlike the game card slot, you're probably only going to be slotting in a few SD cards, so if it reads one, I just assume it can read them all. Absolute worst case scenario, if the SD card slot was bad, it's a modular replacement. It's very easy to do. That's something that I think an end user can manage, but I have no reason to suspect the SD card slot is at all bad. Game card slot, on the other hand, that is an entirely different story. So, as you see, this giant cascading pile of game cards, I just have a stack of shovelware that I'm just going to be taking in and out of the game card slot and just seeing how the console reacts, how it reads the cards, etc. Ah, a willing volunteer. Pets Hamster Life 2. So what I'm going to do is just insert the game card like normal. Game comes up. I'm going to put pressure on the game card, not enough to actually initiate the mechanism to actually click the card out, but leading up to it and then eventually clicking to it. I'll just be putting pressure on it and then just kind of jiggling it from side to side. It should read the game card the entire time. I click the mechanism, so now I'm kind of at a point of no return where the card will come out. Clicked it back in. I'm just sort of steadily pushing it in until I hit that mechanism click. Now it's out, back in. So it read it the entire time. And then another thing I'll be doing is smacking the back of the console onto my open palm to make sure that, well, for one, the console doesn't turn off because the battery becomes dislodged, and for two, the game card doesn't disappear. Which neither happened. So I'm able to get all these game cards read, with the exception of this game card, which the only way I was able to get it to disappear is if I was bottoming out the console or the card in the game card slot. I was holding it on this side. Oh. I must have accidentally touched the game card trying to open it. So if I have that game card pressed all the way down on this right side, it disappears, which you're talking kind of extreme circumstances, so I don't really worry about that. That could just be a issue or a fault with this game card particularly, since I wasn't able to replicate that on any other game card. But just because I'm here, I'll go ahead and just give the game card a cleaning, as well as the game card slot, which will just be saturating the pins with rubbing alcohol and then just taking it in and out of the game card slot several times. Just putting friction on those pins, both on the game card and the slot. And that should be good. So it very confidently passes that test. So all I theoretically have left is Wi-Fi, which I test via a hotspot on my phone, which a phone I'm currently using as my camera. I've never had a console fail that, so I'm not too worried. I'll do that later. So I need to get screw covers on, and then I'll be ready to... Actually, I'll keep these here. Get ready to actually do the condition score. So I gotta find some nice and snazzy screw covers and feet. Okay. So to attach these, I'll use just a tiny bit amount of Elmer's glue. Some of these screw covers still have the adhesive on them, which is a good thing. They'll stick better. Does mean they want to stick to each other. little too much Elmer's glue on that screw. Hmm. I'll let that kind of sit for a second. I need to get gloves going. Get a little distilled water onto a microfiber cloth and just give this console a wipe down. I'll just grab a new paper towel. Now I'll get these out of my way. So for the condition assessment, I'm just going to be looking at 4 different categories: physical condition of the shell, physical condition of the hardware, the physical condition of the screens, and then as well as the screen conditions. I'm just going to kind of go one at a time and give a very subjective opinion and score on this console, and just kind of point out any flaws that I see initially. So the physical condition of the shell is the shell condition itself. Usually, with very rare cases, this top glossy shell piece is almost always scratched up. This one's actually in pretty good shape. Let me kind of get my light a little closer. You'll kind of see as I sort of pivot it over my light, there are marks, like little scuffs, but as far as scratches go, it's not that bad. Like there's a couple marks down here. There's a mark right there, like I pointed out. You can kind of see hair scratches throughout, but I think it still looks fairly good. As far as glossy top shell pieces are concerned. Kind of looking around here, I don't notice anything too egregious. There's a little bit of marking around this piece. It's not bad. Going around the shell. I do kind of notice these 2 shell halves are a little different color, which is kind of interesting. Looking around the back, there's some light scratching right there. Obviously the serial number's gone. There's a little bit of A little bit of damage right there. A little bit below the shoulder button. But overall, not that bad. Looking at the face, I did notice looking at these that there were discoloration around the D-pad and the ABYX buttons. It looks like just the ABY. I understand that just to be friction of fingers moving across these buttons, wearing down the shell. But I think other than that, it looks pretty good. Checking on these shoulder button or screw covers. So it's not perfect. It's got little imperfections here and there, but it's definitely not bad. Not bad at all. So I think I'm going to give it a very good. Discoloration around face buttons. Physical condition of the hardware, those are all the buttons. Face buttons look fine. Usually I try to get shoulder buttons that match the condition of the shell. I'm not really noticing anything too bad with these right and left shoulder buttons. Kind of see a little mark, but it's a little hard to make out. I guess there's a bit of a scratch on the R. Might be a little hard to see. There it is. And then I also include the screw covers. Come on. Which, they're doing their job. Say that one is a little beat up, but got two little marks in it. I'd say mainly the screw covers are the ones that are the problems. And the shoulder button does have a scratch in it. The face buttons are otherwise good. This is what makes subjective scoring very difficult. I really don't have any other reason to give it not a very good, because the shoulder buttons are fairly good. Like I have shoulder buttons that are in a much worse shape, but functionally speaking, they all work fine. Scratch on our marks on feet. Okay. Physical condition of the screens are like the actual screens themselves. Now I'm going to kind of be fighting against dust. I see some marks kind of get the light right. There's like a little string of marks right there. I don't know what those are, but they're very faint. Yeah, I do see them at multiple angles, so I'll do a very good light marks on top screen. Screen condition are the actual LCD displays. Usually I'm looking for how well they match. So this was something that can be made out in the camera. Just gonna kind of cycle. I think the main color difference is there might be just very faint yellowing on the bottom screen. Just around these edges. Yeah, that might be it. Otherwise, I think the colors match pretty good. Faint yellowing on bottom screen. So I gave a very good on the entire assessment, 2468, which puts it right at the very bottom of very good. Today is the 16th. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, I just need to do the Wi-Fi test, which I'll do later, but I think this console is ready to go.